welcome to another edition of Sustainable Solutions with Planet Aid, the podcast that explores sustainable solutions for the most pressing issues facing our planet and communities today. I'm Planet Aid's Communications Manager, Haley Chitty, and I'm going to turn it over to our host, Planet Aid's Communication and Content Specialist, Monica Johnson. I'll jump back in later to ask a few follow-up questions. Monica, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Haley, and welcome to Sustainable Solutions with Planet Aid. I'm Monica Johnson, and I'm going to be your guide for this journey as we take challenging situations and try to simplify them. And it's also an opportunity to learn from incredible individuals and organizations at the forefront of developing and implementing sustainable solutions. Change is not only possible, but it's essential, and it begins with understanding. And today, we're talking to Christine Garde-Denning, founder and CEO of Could You, a New York-based nonprofit organization. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we are so excited to be here too, because this is a topic that is just, I feel like it doesn't get touched very much, especially we have a lot of media that covers things, and this is not something that you hear much about. So let's just dig in. Christine, if you can first tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to the point in your life where you decided that you wanted to help others and empower them, empower themselves, and do that formally through your organization, Could You?
Thank you. Thank you. So we had started the organization in 2008, and it was originally started from a hedge fund manager who in New York had done a lot of charity, both in America and in Africa. And he felt like he was getting good return on investment, meaning good charity return in America, but he was losing a lot of money in Africa, and he realized he didn't know the right people. And so we decided to start an organization that would bring people of integrity from the West to partner them with people of integrity in Africa, and allow them to get to become friends first and do charity or business together. So Coogee was facilitating those meetings, conversations in Africa. We had a beautiful network of really amazing African leaders that we were introducing to people in America and Europe. That evolved into, we began to work in Mozambique. At the time, the largest oil discovery in the last 60 years actually is in Mozambique.
Mm.
They found oil on and offshore.
Wow.
Well, Mozambique's not a wealthy country. And so how do you protect your own people? How do you make sure that your own local people will be the ones who benefit and not big companies? So there was a very high illiteracy rate in Mozambique. At the time, 70% of even graduating seniors, they were calling functionally illiterate, which that's complicated.
Yeah.
So we were asked provincially to look at, hey, how can we help increase the literacy rate so we can help more Mozambicans be able to be prepared for these jobs when this oil is finally refined. We did that. We partnered with local Mozambican teachers. Beautiful program. It was created by local Mozambicans, and we added PhDs to it. And it was able to be given to teachers who could then get their students literate in 5 months. And these teachers might be 7th grade science teachers whose kids couldn't read. The program worked really well. What happened, though, it still goes on, but what happened is we were told that 93% of girls started kindergarten in Mozambique. Only 11% were in secondary school, and only 1% went to college. Well, you cannot build a nation with no girls. And so we were asked provincially, could you help us look at why are they all dropping out? And could we then look at how do we stop that gap? That's when we went to our African partners who know better than us. And of course, there might be 12 reasons that could keep a girl from continuing to the 7th grade. But
Right.
there's one solvable reason. And that's when I learned about the issue of period poverty. I care about justice, and I care about solutions, and I care about common sense. And so I learned 500 million women and girls today cannot afford products. They're missing school. They're missing work. They're using unsanitary items. I then learned about the menstrual cup. No clue. No one told me about it until this moment. And it's a 10-year solution. And so I thought, how is it that we have this huge problem, and yet here we have this proven solution that's been around 88 years. Why are we not marrying the two to end this one issue? And that's when I pivoted, and I'm on a mission to just get the word out. So thank you for having me here.
Oh yeah, this is great. I mean, it's it's one of those things that you can just listen to and say, well, why is that not happening? And you got to think distribution has something to do with it, economics. I'm sure there's all kinds of politics that's involved with it as well. So, but we're happy to have you today. Your nonprofit, Could You? Can you tell me what's behind that name, Could You?
So when we all decided to start this organization back in New York City, back in 2007, we had this idea that what do we care about? And how do we embody that in the name? And so we ended up feeling as if we wanted to invite people. Could you make a difference? Could one person's life matter? Could we actually change the world? This invitation. And so we came up with, and when I say we, it was actually Gordon Pennington came up with the name, but it was a name that I thought captured what we were trying to do. We wanted to envision doing charity different and ending some issues together. And so that's why we created the name Could You. And I had I read a book that kind of shaped the DNA of our organization. Inside this book by Parker Palmer called Let Your Life Speak, there was a quote that said, I think the quote was from Frederick Buechner, and it said, "True self happens when your deepest gladness and the world's deep need intersect." And I thought, I want to build an organization that helps people think about what are the problems out there in the world? What are my skill sets and how do I marry them so that we can solve problems? And so Could You became the name of our organization.
I love that. That's soft. That's so awesome. And the mission really is to combat poverty with solutions. Dare we say sustainable solutions? Um,
Absolutely.
so, two of the focuses for your organization are ending poverty and eradicating mosquito borne illnesses as well. Briefly, can you explain why this and also the period poverty were the two that you wanted to concentrate on?
Sure. So our mission was that our mission is, we would curate, prove, and then scale solutions to poverty in partnership with local government, businesses, NGOs, and individuals. So we didn't know what the first ones would be. And then we met some people who had created truly the world's best repellent. It's natural, 100% natural. And yet it works as good as DEET, but it has no DEET in it. And so it protects you for 16 hours. And when I learned about it, I started to use it. I thought, when I'm in Africa, I don't get bit. Why are we spending hundreds of millions of dollars on just bed nets with pesticides and indoor residual spraying? Again, unhealthy. When most people in those countries are living and spending most of their time outside, cooking outside, walking, working, farming, and yet we're protecting them only in a bed net. When I saw this, I decided that we would introduce it to some of our friends in Africa. And so we are not doing anything right now with that other than it is currently in Uganda with the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation in a studies phase where they want to study it. They are studying it. They want to prove that it is not just a personal protection, but also a community protection. Because the World Health Organization says that bed nets are an individual protection, but it's also a community protection. But they deem repellents as just individual protections. So the study, all we're doing is we introduced everybody, and we have a white label, and it's called Max Repellent for our NGO. We want the people who have the least amount of money to be able to have access to an incredible item like this. And so that is in the study phase. And while we wait for that study, our majority of our time is being spent on ending period poverty with the reusable menstrual cup because it's a 10-year solution. And so imagine if you can't afford pads and you have to miss school, have sex for a box of pads or whatever. Suddenly, if you get a solution for 10, within those 10 years, your life will radically get better and you'll be able to buy your next product. But we feel like it's the only sustainable way to end that particular issue. So we are on a scale. We are now trying to scale the work ending period poverty, while this other thing just studies, and then that's what they focus on.
Wow. And you mentioned something, you kind of mentioned it very casually, but you said having sex for pads.
Unbelievable. I will tell you, it's what drives me. So I'll tell you two stories. One, in Geneva at the World Health Assembly, they said, ever since COVID, the number of girls having transactional sex for pads, so these are not sex workers. These are girls who are being offered, I will have sex with you, from a potential boda driver, which is like a little taxi motorcycle driver. If you have sex with me, I'll buy you a box of pads. That is happening so much that they say increase in STIs and HIV, child marriage and teen pregnancy has exploded. I know it firsthand. Our team members talk to girls. It's part of our baseline assessment. So girls can anonymously say if they have engaged in that practice to get a box of pads. So when I heard that, it got me crazy. Then Plan International in Ghana funded a study in a community called the Wa East, where they said 83% of adolescent girls were having sex for pads. I freaked out. That's someone's daughter. And I literally went to the government, our team, we went to the government, to all of the players and said, this is insane. We could end this for $1 a year. And they all said they had no money. My small organization raised the money. We donated 2,000 cups. We paid the local teams, and we provided 2,000 of those girls in that same community with a menstrual cup. After 7 months, our teams were monitoring and evaluating, collecting data, 97% acceptability. As a result, we were invited to author a chapter in the book out of Oxford called The Elgar Companion for Sustainable Development. It's coming out next quarter, so that is excellent. We also were nominated for a Earthshot Prize on sustainable products. We didn't win, but we were nominated. And that's 97% of 2,000 girls who never have to choose to have sex with a stranger for a box of pads.
What an impact you're having. The Could You Cup. Let's talk a little bit about that. It was conceived, and we know that menstrual cups they've been around forever, like you said, they've been around for a while. Tell us what benefits come with having this cup as a menstruating woman, child, who has no access or maybe no finances for pads, tampons, and other things that many in the Western world can access so easily. And you talked about, of course, not having to have sex, but what are some of these other benefits that really come along with it?
Yeah. So here's what I found surprising. I live right now in California, San Diego, but I also am in New York a lot. So the nonprofit that I have, we started to interview high school girls here in California and in New York City. And this is me personally, but there's plenty of studies out there that say the same. Girls in our own country cannot afford pads. There are girls in our own cities and maybe rural communities who genuinely can't afford $10 a month. I've talked to moms who are single moms with 3 girls, all menstruating. She doesn't have $40 extra. So those girls also don't go to school 3 to 5 days every single month. Or I've heard girls say, well, we can't afford pads. Sometimes if I have a tampon, I'll just keep it in for like 16 hours. Okay, that's a recipe for toxic shock.
Yeah.
And so I've heard women say if they can't afford products and you have like a waitress uniform, imagine a light waitress uniform, you can't go to work. So it's happening in our own countries, but I'd say a few things. Whether it's you're missing work, you're missing school, or imagine as a menstruator, when you had to use toilet paper and it bleeds through, like there's shame, there's stigma, there's embarrassment, it's stressful. And imagine when you're a kid, now you're in high school or junior high, are the boys going to make fun of me? As an adult, I've seen myself in situations in the past where you go to a work meeting, it's mortifying. And so there's layers of impact when you can't afford a product. So the menstrual cup, what it does is it solves a few things. You buy it once for $10 if you buy it from us, and you don't buy a pad for 10 years. It saves 89 kgs of CO2 emissions because disposable tampons and pads take 500 to 800 years to decompose. They sit in landfills. They say if Joan of Arc was using a pad or tampon, it'd still be there. I mean, that's a problem.
But just saying what you're saying, it just makes me also think about the fact that it takes that long to decompose. What's in this?
Forever chemicals, right? Do you realize I just saw a study that came out? Someone sent me an article yesterday that talks about PFAS, forever chemicals that are in our tampons and pads.
Yeah.
Come
And
on,
I've
and there's
also
no
read about metals as well.
right? And you want a woman to put this in her or next to her every month, 5 days a month for 40 years, and you haven't really studied the impact of forever chemicals? Not okay. So it's an environmental, it's a solution for the environment. It is a better solution for your pocket, right? Because you don't have to spend $5 to $10 a month for 40 years. And it's also just, I think, it's safer, cleaner. Now it takes some time to get used to it, but as a tampon user and pad user my whole life, when I got the cup, it was a game changer.
Medical grade silicone. Tell me a little bit about that because that's what I'm seeing that it's made of.
Yes. So you want to make sure if you're inserting something, right, you want to make sure that it's the healthiest.
Right.
So we ended up creating our own cup because we had gone to a bunch of cup companies and said, this is working in Africa. Can you donate? And there's only so much that a for-profit company can donate. The need was too great. So we pivoted, got our own mold, FDA registered our own menstrual cup so that we would be able to create it a little bit softer because we intended for the most vulnerable who have never even used a tampon. So we made a small size, FDA registered. We put our logo in it so that you can't counterfeit it and buy it somewhere on the internet for $4 and it's got heavy metals in it. So that we would be able to create our own package where we hire marginalized women to make the cotton carry bags it stores itself in. We do our instructions for use in the different languages locally. Plus, we offset it with videos. Plus, for $10, you can get cups shipped to Africa in bulk, right? We do it in bigger quantities, but we ship them to Africa. We partner with local NGOs. We invest back into the community to have them make the bags, and we pay underemployed youth to help do data collection so that we can publish that in medical journals. And then we also pay for community sensitization and health education. The whole thing is $10, but you have to have the highest grade of medical grade silicone. Therefore, we do make sure that we have the best silicone so that it is safe to be able to be used for 10 years.
And some of the instructions will talk about making sure that it's clean when you're using it. What are some of the other things that would go along with that?
So, keep in mind our audience is often people who have never used a tampon. And sometimes we're whether it's working in the inner city in America or working in a rural community in Africa, we talk about make sure you don't share it. If you have a cousin who, and this is what happens a lot, you have a cousin who doesn't have a sister. And so they often try to share. And we just try to say, yes, it's going to be cleaned and sterilized at the end of the month by boiling it for 3 to 5 minutes, but this is yours. And you don't want to really be sharing it. So we talk about don't share it. We talk about, hey, this does not keep you from getting pregnant. So it's just like false. Make sure we tackle that. You have to have clean hands to insert, and you have to have clean hands to remove, but you actually don't need to rinse it. So imagine you're in a bathroom in an airport and you take it out. You're not going to then what? Go out to the sink. So even in America, I don't rinse it. I might dab toilet paper on it to get it, But even if I don't have toilet paper, I literally take it out, empty it, and put it right back in. You can do that. That's what the beauty of the menstrual cup. As long as your hands are clean, it's just your own body. So we tell people, do not rinse it unless you are 100% sure it's clean water. Imagine a rural community that doesn't have clean water. You would not want unclean water touching it. Therefore, we say, take it out, even if it's a pit latrine, empty it, put it right back in, go about your way. Now, at the end of your cycle, take it out and boil it, even if you're boiling over wood because you live in a rural community. Boil it in a pot for 3 to 5 minutes and it sterilizes it. and then you put it in your cotton carry storage bag where marginalized women in your community made it, they got employed, and you store it in a safe place until the next month.
This is so good because I love the fact that you don't have to take it out when you're out and have to do all of that stuff, because that's a lot. Like you were talking about before, the shame aspect of it is just amazing to think about, because it is embarrassing sometimes to have to do certain things, even in front of women. So why would you want to do that? So I love that allows you to be able to have this private moment to do whatever you need to do, and then just do it, put it right back in. So
That's right.
yeah, that's a game changer, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking on Instagram and I saw a reenactment skit telling the story of a young girl who felt shame at going to school, and bleeding out. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just say that. And talked about her shame from society for having these accidents. And it was actually a contest that was run by your organization. And there's a young lady named Blessings, I believe, who was the winner of that contest for the reenactment. Tell me a little bit about that and some of the stories that you get, because you requested stories with that.
So part of what we're realizing is we need to talk about menstruation. Why is it that it's taboo? Why don't we include boys in it? Why, even in America, are men, talking about it? Like, we want to change that because it's a normal thing. Everyone knows someone who menstruated. They were born of a woman, they have a sister, a cousin. Like, we all have women in our lives if you're not one. And so we want to normalize the conversation so it's not taboo. And how do you do that? And we also want to introduce the Coogee cup because no one's heard of the cup. A lot of Americans, I hadn't heard of it. So these girls in these communities in Africa, they also haven't heard of it. So we thought, let's capitalize on the creativity of young, not just people in general. So for International Day of the Girl, we did our first contest where we said, hey, we went to all of our NGO partners across Africa and we said, if you are an NGO partner, you've used the cup or trained on the cup or know about the cup, and you want to submit a 2-minute or less video, we gave no parameters. We just said, send a video and we're going to have a contest. First winner is going to get $300. Second winner is going to get $200. Third winner is going to get $100. Keep in mind, many of the communities that we work in are living on $50 a month as a family.
I was just thinking that.
So $300, it can do a lot. Well, we got extraordinary, too many good videos. People did soap operas, people did spoken word, it was unbelievable. It was really tough. So we ended up, that particular video was from Nigeria, and it was a spoken word poem that was written and then enacted by some high school students based on the true story of the author. I thought they did a beautiful job. And so I wasn't the judge. We had 6 judges and they all loved them so much that what that did is we realized we want to have a contest 6 times a year. So we just had a second contest and then we had some of these other videos submit for that now under like, we just did one on poetry, and then we're going to do one on dance. So we want to make different categories because we want to get the word out to sensitize communities about the issue and the solution. And we thought, let's utilize social media, and then let's highlight the winners and give them money. So, and the last contest, we had 3 winners on. It's just fun. It's a way that we get to interact with the reality on the ground in a fun way.
And you see the gratefulness, because I loved that story because she really was explaining how much this has affected her life and how she feels free because of this. So yeah, I really love that. So I thought I'd bring that up to you. What challenges could you faced in scaling its solutions, and how have you addressed those challenges?
Yeah, so we continue 2 challenges. There's a misunderstanding that the menstrual cup works well in Europe and America and the West, but just doesn't work in the developing world and in Africa. Everyone says that, whether you're the big funders, USAID, all the large funders kept saying that. Only that's not true. They say it doesn't work for cultural reasons, religious reasons, lack of water, community sensitization, insertion. Well, the truth is, it does work. But it takes hard work, partner with the right people, get the right blessings, permissions, and let them choose it. You don't force it. You literally go into communities and you say, tell us about your menstrual needs. Tell us what do you currently use? Build friendship, and then eventually say, here's something that we use. And the women are sometimes doctors or nurses, and they say, I'm using it, and they answer questions. So I think misunderstanding. We have been told by every single big player, it does not work in Africa. So we had to hire a PhD so we could literally publish our own data to prove it does. Meanwhile, other data has been published for decades. So what we've been on is a mission to get all the data together and present it to potential funders to say, it does work. Look at these guys from London School, Liverpool School, Columbia University, it works. And then we started to publish our own data. Now we got our first breakthrough in 2024. We were told by Gates Foundation, Children's Investment Fund, and USAID that they would fund a large-scale RCT trial for our work at scale, 82,000 cups. It was going to be a game changer. Got the obligation, hired people. Suddenly, USAID's gone overnight. So Gates Foundation is still in. Unfortunately for us, we're still doing the trial, but instead of having 82,000 cups, now we have 2,000 because there's only half the money left, and it's going to go to studying the cup through RCT, proving it decreases absenteeism, child marriage, and teen pregnancy. Those are beautiful things, and it does do that. I wish we could have had the money, the matching money, which would have allowed 82,000 girls to have a 10-year solution. But you know what? I'm an optimist, and we're going to keep on keeping on. And so we are in that trial. I believe 3 years from now when the trial's over, I believe that there will be funders that will take the cup to scale. And we are also being strategic about who do we partner with. So misinformation is our biggest barrier, and funding. We have 2 million girls on a wait list. When I say girls, they're not all children, right? So it's
Right.
14 to 45. We have 2 million people waiting for a cup. We've got the president of Liberia wanting to scale this in his country. He just doesn't have the money. And so we have access to Ministry of Education, Ministry of Gender. We have a president in Liberia who really wants to solve the issue. We're trying to help figure out how do we get it funded. We've got 2 million people waiting for a cup. So I'd say we do the best we can to raise money through grants, to raise money through every $10 keeps one girl have her needs met for 10 years. So we're doing kind of a little bit on a micro level, and also trying to write larger grants to try to get larger resources from CSR groups, businesses, foundations, anyone.
The more you talk about it, the more it'll be out there, and somebody's going to connect with the
That's right.
purpose.
That's right.
Looking ahead, what are could use goals for future generations, and how do you, what are the things that you're doing to achieve them?
I want to end period poverty by 2040, and it's achievable. It's because we're not trying to do it on our own. I want to reallocate. I'll give you an example. There are countries across Africa who already have budgets in place where they spend money buying disposable pads. In our country in America, we've got states like California who passed bills where they're also providing free menstrual hygiene products. Here's the problem. In America, 67 menstrual equity bills, they all defined a menstrual hygiene product as a disposable tampon or pad. That has to change. So we went to the state of California and said, could you add the cup? They said no. But New York City said yes. So New York City, Amanda Farias, Women's Council, City Council, they actually wrote 4 new laws. One is enacted. They've changed the definition of a menstrual hygiene product to add the cup. Why is that important? If you're going to give dispensers in bathrooms across this country, that means you give a student access to a product until 2 p.m. What about giving them something that they can last nights, holidays, weekends, and summers? What about you say you care about the environment, but you're going to do only disposables? Also, it saves $13 on average a user a year. So it feels like save money, save the environment, help more girls. In Africa, we've got countries who have budgets. I won't call out the countries, but there are countries that range from 7.5 million a year to $35 million a year on disposable pads. When you say, how many pads does each girl get? For the year, There's so many girls who need it, anywhere from 8 to 12. What is the point? What is the point? So all I'm trying to do is to say, we have got to get an office of common sense here. We've got to help people reallocate some of those big budgets. All I'm asking for is 10%. Give us 10% of your budget and watch it work. Watch girls have life transformed with a 10-year solution. So my goal is I want to end this thing. Therefore, the more studies we do, the more podcasts we do, the more we change legislation, the more we see budgets allocated to see a sustainable solution that works, the collectiveness of that, this thing will be over by 2040.
That's amazing that you said that 8 to 12 for the year. That is just unbelievable. And you have to think about there are people, not to get too technical, of course, but there are people who have heavy flows.
Right.
And they will probably use like 4 in a day, So that, to me, that's just kind of crazy. Yeah, but I'm so glad that you're out there fighting for it, and I can see your passion for it as well. What opportunities are available for people who want to support you, to get involved? And also, please share your website, where you can be found on social media, those kinds of things.
Perfect. So we would love more followers. We do a lot of really good work. We just don't know, enough people don't know about us. So I'd say we're on social media under Could You Cup. So COULDYOU Cup. We're on Facebook. TikTok, we're called The Real Could You Cup. We're on Instagram. We're on X. Our website is www.couldyou.com. And you can donate. If you are involved in Rotary, please reach out to info@couldyou.org, because we are doing some pretty beautiful projects with Rotary in Uganda, and we're going to go a bit bigger. We're going to serve 7,000 girls now in Uganda and grow those programs. And so follow us on social media. If you have a foundation, reach out to us, vet us. We've been vetted by the big ones and we come out on top. We just need the money. And so I'd say if there is ways that you can talk more about the issue, talk more about the solution, invite us into community conversations, donate. $10 works, and so does 10 million.
I saw that you had, I looked at one of your partnerships, Dr. Bronner. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how that's been helpful to the cause, just as maybe an inspiration to other people who might want to partner with you?
Great. Yeah. So we love Dr. Bronner and his soap. We love the work that they do. They are a very well-established company. I think it's over 100 years. It could be even more than that. But they really do not only provide beautiful products, but they also are making sure that their entire supply chain is done with integrity. So, for instance, they source palm oil from places like Sierra Leone and Ghana, and that's what they use in their soap. They do, I'm not going to maybe get the numbers 100% accurate, but they increase or they add an extra percentage onto the cost. And that money goes to communities that are creating and providing the palm oil in Ghana and in Sierra Leone. And what they're doing is making sure that they have extra money in those communities to serve issues that those communities are facing. And the community determines what they need, right? So they, through some friends, they heard about us and they realized that in Ghana, for instance, they were spending money providing the reusable pad, which the reusable pad is good, but it is usually best for girls that are young, primary school. Older women don't typically love it. It usually lasts 18 months. It requires 10 times as much water. And it's just not, I would prefer a cup over a rag. I'm sorry, not a rag, a reusable pad. So for the money and the convenience, plus for the environmental impact, Dr. Bronner cares deeply about the environment. So basically, they thought, we don't know if the cup will work here. So we said, let's pilot and try. Our trainers trained their local team. And then eventually their local team just took off, meaning they're incredible trainers. Like they've got profound people. They took it off. They did wonderful. And so he has been able to meet the menstrual needs of the first 500 people in that community. Well, now there's another 1,000 asking for it. So now we're trying to do another online fundraiser to raise money and then to try to see if Dr. Bronner's group can help offset to reach another 1,000 people in his community.
Very good. The power of partnerships, right?
That's right.
All right, Haley, I know you've been chomping at the bit to get in here. And just, I said something to Haley before we got on the air. I said that, not a lot of men would really want to do this conversation. So hats off to him for, being able to stick around in this conversation and have something to say.
I agree. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I feel like my, vision has been widened here in terms of my awareness. A bunch of things I've never heard of, thought of, considered. And so, what you were saying about making sure that men are part of the conversation, that we understand that there's no stigma around it, is just so vital. So I appreciate being brought into that as well. I think we have a pretty good picture of period poverty. I think you provided some good examples. Can you just tell us what menstrual equity would look like? Where's an ideal system?
Yeah. I think menstrual equity is that no barriers are keeping menstruators back. And so that involves a lot of different things. It means we should not be taxing menstrual products. It's not a luxury. It's not a luxury item. You need it, right? We shouldn't be taxing it at the least. At the most, low-income communities who can't afford products ought to be given them for free, I think. If you're going to require schools across Africa, for instance, that you require a uniform, I think a menstrual product, a sustainable menstrual product, the reusable pad for the primary school girls and a reusable cup for the secondary school should be part of the uniform at $1 a year and give them a reason to always have a product. I think legislation, equity is, we need to be sure that students, if you're going to give away free products, be equitable, allow for choice, allow for a sustainable product. I think that every single level of menstruation needs to be addressed. So that is, as you said, conversations, stigma. We should talk about it more. Why are we not engaging boys in the conversation at a younger age so that it's normal? It's not a big deal. You just talk about it. So I would say I want menstruators to have equal access to everything, to work, to school, to dignity. And the way you do that is one by one, let's just get rid of the obstacles that are keeping them from having a fair shot, an equitable future to the boys who don't have to worry each month about what they're going to bleed into.
And you've talked, I think, a lot about sort of the individual benefits to women. Can you just connect that to the broader benefits of the community? What do you see when there's this menstrual equity?
Good question. So one stat that has always stayed with me, World Bank says we are losing between 15 and $30 trillion by not having girls finish 12 years of school. So that to me is a stark number. Therefore, think about the ways that we could really, really grow economies locally by keeping girls in school. Also, when the impact of keeping girls in school in a community in Africa, for instance, is pretty amazing, because they say that when you educate a girl, actually the women who are educated, or the women who end up getting more empowered, women spend their money back in the community and they invest in their family. What they find is when girls graduate 12 years of school, they actually have babies later in life. And when I say later, I mean they're less teen pregnancies. They are spending good money in the community. And so it helps an individual girl, but it also helps her community in real tangible ways to be healthier and to even just to thrive. So there's genuine community impact, and I think global impact if we were doing it at scale.
One thing we're really interested in is end of life recycling. It's a real challenge in the textile industry, but I know that you have a program to make sure that even after 10 years, we're not putting these in the dumpster. We're actually going to give them another life.
That's right. So, early on, we were asked that question. Well, what about the fact that what if this does go to scale and you have all these menstrual cups sitting around in the landfill that never go anywhere? And my honest first reaction was, my goodness, like that's what we're worried about, thinking about the reusable pads and the rags. But you know what? I'm really glad that I was actually encouraged to solve that question. I didn't know how to do it, but with advice from other friends, etc., here's what we ended up doing in partnership with Stericycle here in California. We have an arrangement that anyone who wants to, let's say you're done with your cup after 10 years, then you boil it one last time, mail it back to us, and they already have a program where they recycle medical grade silicone into renewable energy. So
Oh,
at
wow.
least it's an option. Now, I'm also a realist. We haven't even been in business 10 years. so we haven't come to that point yet. But we really do know that we want to close the loop. So if we were to go to scale across Africa, across America, across any country, we genuinely would always have points that we would say, here's a pickup point. When you're done, you can drop it off here, you can mail it here, and we will always make sure that it does end up into renewable energy. We haven't gotten that far yet because, like I said, we're still within the 10 years that cups are being used.
Appreciate that you put the forethought in to think of end of life is a hot topic for us.
Good. I love that. I love that.
I really am impressed with how the organization, I picture the organization like the little Dutch boy who plugs the dike with his fingers. You're really finding these specific things and specific solutions. So I'm just really impressed with that. And I think it really speaks to how you're listening to the local communities and not coming in with a solution, but really, listening. So I just wanted to, that's really our approach in terms of international community development, is making sure that it's locally led, it's leveraging local knowledge, and it's having the community come up with the solutions. So I just wanted to turn it over to you and just talk about the importance of that local knowledge and the resources there.
You're so right. And I think that's why people fail in their, really, I think my mother used to say, really good intentions, what did that, pave the way to hell or something like that. But like really good intentions are not enough. And just because you know how to do something well in your context doesn't mean you know how to transfer that into someone else's community. And even communities that are 45 minutes away from each other in Africa, for instance, could be very different, right? There could be cultural taboos. And so it is vital that before you do anything, you are in a community listening. And so we think that the idea of listening circles should be first step. Come into a community with no advice that you're going to give, but instead make sure you have the stakeholders, the key players, the people who might be just revered in that community. It could be people of faith, it could be government, but you figure it out. You asset map and you figure it out. Invite key stakeholders into a conversation where you ask about the issue you want to solve, whatever the issue is. For us, it's period poverty. But if you have another solution to something else, like listen, ask the questions, tell us about the problem. So for us, it's what do you currently use? Are there issues? What are the taboos? What are the practices? And then at some point you listen enough that you understand where the barriers are. You ask them how much they spend on products. And then that's when they might say, well, can't afford products. What do you use? Does that ever give you any problems? Well, yeah, we get infections. So you listen, you learn. And then from that point, you can work together to say, how do we solve it? Now, for us, we are basically saying, here is how we have addressed it. You can use a reusable pad. You can use a reusable menstrual cup. If anyone's ever interested, let us know. And then they self-select. A few leaders try it. And when they feel comfortable after using it, then they're able to personally invite their community to say, do you want a 10-year solution? Obviously, we can give them data to back it up that it's safe, but it has to come from them or it feels like this intrusion.
Last question here. It breaks my heart to hear, there's these girls and women out there and they're especially vulnerable time and they're being taken advantage because they're in this vulnerable time. And yet you also say you're an optimist. So I'm just wondering, what tips can you have? How can we maintain our optimism when we see some of this terrible stuff?
So I am an optimist at heart, but I think what keeps me going is I get video testimony, audio testimony, and pictures from around the world and across Africa and even America. I had a little girl in America, Kansas, reach out to me from social media and ask for a menstrual cup. And when you learn about what she's enduring as a young girl, it's wrong. But I text her. I've given her some bras and some underwear, but I'd say in general, here's what I think. There are amazing young people out there. All they need is a little bit of a support. When I get a text back from a young girl in Africa or a young girl in America who is making it work, I think, okay, if you can make it work in what you've been given, I'm going to do everything I can to make it work in what I've been given, because I think all of us can only do what we can do in our own sphere of influence. So I feel like I want to work hard to serve as many people as possible, but I stay encouraged because it works. And when you hear a young person or a woman say, this is changing my reality, that's enough for me. So if I get super sad or super frustrated or super disappointed because we lost money, I watch a video and I'm like, you know what? I got enough in me for another day.
It's inspiring to watch what other people overcome for sure. So I could see that being a nice shot of motivation.
Well, we want to thank Christine Garde-Denning. This has been extremely insightful, and we want to encourage you also to check out couldyou.org for more information about the organization and all of their initiatives. And thank you for joining us for this episode of Sustainable Solutions with Planet Aid. We hope you've been inspired by the ideas we've explored today, and we encourage you to search for sustainable solutions that you can pursue so that you can be a good steward in your neck of the woods and beyond. Haley?
All right. Thank you, Monica. A few reminders to our listeners on the way out. If you want to stay connected with us and stay informed about the latest sustainable solutions, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and please share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. Together we can make a difference. And remember, change starts with awareness and action. So let's keep the conversation going. Feel free to reach out to us on social media, through our website, and share your thoughts, ideas, and stories with us. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, remember, it's a big world out there, but every small change counts. Together, we can build a better, more sustainable future. Thanks all.